Welcome back for another video. Today's the day we're going to cut our beams in, get them setting down level and square on the footing blocks. A couple of things we're going to do as far as working with this odd size material, and a few things that's going to make it easier, and then hopefully by the end of it we'll be ready to put some purlings across this thing and actually get to building this bridge. I hope you enjoy what you see, and I want to thank you for watching. Let's get started with the video. We got some work ahead of us today. If you look at the size of these beams, when we do get this bridge finished, it's going to hold up anything I'd ever choose to drive across it. I mean, this thing's going to be heavy duty. All right. Now, in order to get leveled up, because our pier blocks is already level, we can simply measure from the top of the pier to the top of the log, and then we will know when we're level across. I have put some small boards down in here. What I'm going to do is mark this off and then just simply roll it over onto these boards. I can work with the chainsaw safely and then roll it right back onto the block. These things are exceptionally heavy, so I don't want to have to be trying to lift around on them too much. I'm quickly going to check for square and see how I'm running in association to the other log that I have laying down here, and see if we can get this thing pretty close. Well, I tell you what, that is close. So we're definitely setting good there. This log's laying nice and square on the blocks. I don't have a whole lot of movement here, so I like the way this one's placed. And what I'm going to do is take my torpedo level here and just simply draw me a reference line where I know level will be right here at this mark. And then that way, when I roll it up on my log to start doing my trimming, I will have a reference point. That'll make that a lot easier to roll it right back into the same spot where we need it. Just a separate side here. And then, in order to get where we need to be here on our concrete block, I'm just going to draw me a level line up this thing. And that'll determine where my notches need to cut in at. And always catch before you move it, if this is the spot you're going to keep it in, make yourself a line all the way around this. That way you know exactly what's going to happen when you flip this thing up. Because it being round, like I said, it's a little more challenging to work with than milled material. But just a little bit of patience and you'll get through it. And no sticker bushes. I had to cut this multifloral out from behind me here so I could get down here and work. Those trees are something else. And now what I'm going to do is take this longer level and lay it across here, and I'm going to determine the difference between this end and that end setting off of my footing blocks. And you have to watch and make sure you're not setting on any knots or anything like that that you know you're going to cut away. Let's see, get a level. Alright, so we got about 10 1/4. Now the reason I'm doing this is I don't want to take off any more than I have to. And since this end is my smaller diameter end, I really want to take very little off of this guy. So the majority of our material we're going to remove will be off this larger end here. We're setting right on 9, so we've got 1 1/4 difference. So simply taking off about 1/4 inch or so up here in order to, or probably about 1/2 inch to get everything where it's setting down onto that block. And if I remove about 1 inch of material back here on the back, that's going to get us close. Let me get this other end marked off and we'll start sawing it out. I'm going to go ahead and roll this up now. And my marks do this. There we go. I've got my marks tight to my block, and what I'm going to do is cut on the outsides of that line with the chainsaw, and that'll give me about a 1/2 inch of play because the chainsaw is about 1/4 inch thick. I'm going to look at this reference line here and get this guy turned up to where it was level. That's going to be pretty close, so that's going to be what you're seeing there is the bottom of our beam. And like I said, if I didn't draw these level lines on here in order to know in what relation I'd rolled this up, then you could just simply notch it out as long as you have it setting on a level surface, and then roll it down and set it however you chose to. Let's see if we can get this guy cut down. I'm going to use this tape measure as a wedge. Now, in order to hold this log from rolling, I've taken the chainsaw and cut a couple of wedges. That way I can get this guy rolled up here where it's level for me and hold this log in place. You're already working with the material, just cut yourself a couple of wedges. You can even put some screws in it at a toenail if you wanted to, depending on how bad it's trying to move on you. That should work pretty good. Make sure I'm level now. Boy, it's tough when you're working in a grade such as this too, because by the time you've worked out here for an afternoon now, your legs has gotten a pretty good workout. God, that ain't bad. All right, I think that'll work. Okay, so we're still running level. Now what I'm going to do is finish transposing my lines up and get those all the way around the top of this log so I know exactly where I need to make my cuts at. Got it in there. Like I said, rough material like this does pose a few unique challenges, but if you take your time, you can work right through it, and at the end of it, you're going to have a really nice project that was both fun to do, and it's going to look really nice. Alright, I'm going to transpose those lines, and then we're going to get to sawing this beam up. Now, another thing you can do, because you had your line here on the bottom before we rolled our log up, you can actually take a piece of string and lay right around your log, and then just simply trace your string out, because you'll have to square it a little bit, but your string will give you a pretty good reference mark. Now, if you're dealing with green cedar, be prepared for a bunch of sap. I mean, these trees have a lot of sap to them, and you'll have that stuff stuck on everything. I'm fortunate this tree's been down for a year or so, actually a couple of years now, so I don't have to deal with that, and it's a lot lighter too. If this was green, that log right there would probably weigh close to 300, 400 pounds. Alright, so I've got it laid out now. And this is going to be pretty close to my line here. And then we're going to saw it out, and like I said, now my first initial cuts, I'm going to cut on the opposite side of the line to make sure I give myself about a 1/2 inch of wiggle room on my block down here. And then, so these can go a little bit deeper to get my depth established. And then we're simply going to remove the block out of here. Safety glasses, and be careful, specifically when we start making this cut across here, the chainsaw doesn't like running against the grain like that. So sometimes that can pose another problem. that's exactly why you want your chainsaw sharp. If your saw isn't sharp, then you're going to have a really tough time there. Now you can also just simply take and cut down the notches and then remove this stuff with a hammer or an axe. Let's see how we've done here. Still a little thin, or a little thick up here. So I'm going to take and just shave that out just a little bit more. Alright, that's going to be more than fine. And it's going to be a little bit rough, guys. All it has to do is truly set down a little bit flatter over your concrete block there. Yeah, and that actually could use a little bit more. I got a hump right there. And we're pretty close right there. So you can take, and again, you can mess with that as much as you want to, because the closer it is, the easier it's going to be when you get to your last beam over here. Look at that, make sure I'm not cutting in a bad spot there. Yeah, just that little hump right there. Take that guy out. Now, I think that's going to be more than fine. All right, I'm going to cut this other end. We'll get it ready and then roll the log over and see how we've done. Now again, perfection here may not do you as much, simply because again, the log, once we roll it back over, is not going to be perfect on the upside. So as long as it's fitting your footing real well, you don't get a bunch of rolling, you've got what you need. Oop, got another wedge in here. These wedges worked real well, guys. That's going to be more than fine. Make sure we're sitting down in our gaps. This one's perfect. That one is perfect as well. So more than enough spacing to allow for the thickness of that chainsaw blade where I'm not wrestling to get this down on the blocks. We've got a little bit of movement. That's going to tighten up once we get our purlings across here. I like it, guys. And I'm going to lay this out the same way. I'm going to start with my plumb line here for a reference on each end of the log, and then start laying it out from that point. So we're going to have to take 1.5 inches off this end, and probably about a little more than that up on the upper side. Well, the beams are set, notched in, and I think we're ready for purlings. like I said, when you're dealing with rough material like this, our purlings is going to be round as well. So we're going to have to do a little bit of trimming on them, but we'll get them in place. And I always leave a gap of about a ½ inch to even an inch to allow leaves and dirt and stuff like that to fall down through them. Now, as far as treating cedars like this or any raw wood that you would have, as you can see, we're going to have a nice air space underneath our main structure here. So truly, cedar doesn't need much past that. But there is several options if you chose to. You could coat this with a Thompson's water seal and just allow all your beams to really soak up a gallon, 2 gallons of seal if you wanted to. Now, you can also do burning on these. You can actually burn this bark off and char the wood, and it'll seal this beam probably almost forever. I mean, charring wood like that, if you was going to bury a fence post in the ground, if you'll burn the bottom section that's going to be touching soil, you'll never have any trouble out of them. Burning works real well. Now, you can do that in several ways. You can take a torch, a weed burner, and simply burn at this until you get a good char on it. Now, it doesn't have to be smoldering, just char it. That protects it, seals it from moisture, and also keeps from bugs eating holes into the wood, which allows moisture in, and that starts the decaying process. So you have several options. Now again, if you're using milled material, such as pressure treated and things like that, again, those are also obviously resistant to moisture and moreover resistant to bugs. Bugs doesn't like eating pressure treated wood either. That's why it lasts so long, or one of the reasons. Okay, I'm going to say that this is a success though, and again, we're going to start getting our purlings ready. Now that means a lot of fun because we're going to get to do a lot of dragging with the mule. I am going to harvest some of my cedar trees that's out in different locations and what I would consider in the way. We're going to hook those trees up to the back of the mule from wherever they're at here on the farm and drag those all the way down to the burn pile and trim them up there. That way we can deal with the brush in one throw. Just simply throw it on the brush pile and have it ready to burn, and then we can just bring the logs right over here and put them to use. Okay, the bridge is going to end up being about just under 11 feet long, and we're going to be at 8 feet wide. And like I said, from the size of these, you can drive a truck across this. As soon as I cover them up with another 6 or 8 inch logs rolling this direction, it's going to be a bridge, right? So I'm glad to have it. I hope some of this information has been helpful for you. I most certainly appreciate you watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. And there's more to come. We're going to have a couple more videos on this, and I hope you guys tune in to see it. We're getting close. Thanks for watching.